Hello and welcome to my channel. My name's Shell and this is series 2, weeks 7 and 8 of my Slimming World journey. This is going to be a bit of a sad video. It's a bit sad for circumstances and a bit sorry for myself as well. And also it's going to have some trigger foods in it, so if any of those things bother you, you might not want to watch. I'm going to try and keep it as brief as possible because I've got a lot of things to say and I don't want to go into too much detail. I haven't done a video for 2 weeks and it's still quite late now because today is the 9th of November, so it's Saturday. So last time I went to class was last Tuesday, so I'm almost due for another group, but I wanted to get this one in because I didn't want to leave it for 3 weeks. So the first week, sorry, I've got itchy nose now. The first week of the Slimming World journey I had, which was week 7, was a very bad week for us. Unfortunately, that's my partner, Andy's dad passed away, and he's been ill for a very long time. I mean, he's been ill on and off for 30 years, but the last 6 months have been really, really bad, and we're the only people here to look after him. And quite frankly, before he was as ill as he was, I didn't realise how little help you could get if the person themselves refused to have help. And he did require professional care, but he was a very independent person and he didn't want anybody in the house, so we didn't get any help. And it was very hard for us this last 6 months because you know, it gets, if social services can only get involved if the person themselves asks for help, and if they won't ask for help then they won't get involved. And I didn't realise to which extent you could refuse help as an individual, and it was very frustrating for us because we were left on our own with somebody that really needed professional care and we couldn't really give it. We did what we could, but you get to the point when, you know, if an ambulance is called and if the patient refuses to go, no matter how ill they are, then the ambulance won't take them if they say they don't want to go. And the feeling is very, you feel very abandoned when you see the ambulance driving away and you know that that person should have been taken into hospital. The social services won't have anything to do with it because the person won't ask for help. The doctor won't have washed his hands of it all. And you're left there with a person, you know, who can't look after themselves and who can't really move. And you don't know what to do. You know, you think, well, there's nobody here to help us and we can't cope. And that's the situation, that's just the way it is. You know, nobody can help unless the person asks, and you know, you find you just can't cope. So it's been very, very hard for us. So for the first half of that week, I feel callous talking about weight loss in this situation, but this is a weight loss Slimming World video, so I'm going to talk about it as how it has affected my weight over the last couple of weeks. So the first part of that week, we were caring for him in the last stages of his life, and then we were with him when he passed away. And that week I did go to group, I didn't stay. Was that the week they were doing the Miss Slinky? I can't remember. I went to the 12 o'clock class and I just weighed in and came home because it was only a couple of days after he'd passed away, and we were still in shock really because when someone's been so ill for so long, it's still shocking when they pass away because he's been very ill and pulled back so many times. I think he's passed away about 6 times in the last 20 years and made a remarkable recovery. So when he was very ill this time, we thought, well, you don't know him like we do. He's probably going to be up and about and walking again in another few days, but it wasn't to be this time. And so the first week I went to group, I didn't stay, I got weighed and I lost 3.5 pounds that week. I had been very motivated the week before. I was full of a new start and you know, I was really going to push for £6 a month and I was feeling great. And it still carried me through, although times were hard, and our schedule was very much up in the air. We were out at the hospital for, you know, a long time and there wasn't anything to eat. The cafe was closed and we didn't have anything with us, so you know, we didn't eat anything all day. But I managed to stick to plan rigidly all week, even through all the things that were going on. So I lost £3.5 that week. I was made up with that. I wasn't expecting to lose that much, to be honest. I had stuck to plan, but I did think that I'd only have lost £1 or two. So the second week, things were still quite difficult because it was quite a shock to us that he had passed away. And there are so many things to do, you know, so many legal things, stopping things to do with the water and the gas and the car insurance and the house insurance, blah, 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 blah. It goes on and on and on. People are on the phone all day, forms to fill out on the internet, paper forms. And although it was mostly my husband that was doing all that, my partner, it was still quite difficult. You know, it was a difficult week, quite emotionally stressful. So we got through that, and I went to class again. Did I stay that week? I don't think I stayed again. I think I just got weighed. Oh no, I think I did stay. I can't remember. There's so much happening now, I can't remember what happened. But I think, so I just do this to keep this alive, keep my note taker alive. Yes, I did stay, and I lost £0.5 that week, which I was pleased with. But losing the 3.5 the week before, I thought, well, I can't expect a big gain the next week. And I did stick to plan through the whole thing. I was very pleased with myself. So I stuck to plan, and I lost £0.5, so that was £4 over the 2 weeks. And then I lost it on Wednesday. I went to group on Tuesday, lost the £0.5. On Wednesday I just lost it. And that was because I think the stresses of everything just got too much. I could cope with the other things, but it was the funeral yesterday, and there were relatives coming from everywhere, and that is the sort of thing that I find too stressful to cope with. I had my parents coming, there was other relatives coming from down south, there were relatives coming from all over the place. Some of them I didn't know, which makes me feel really stressful. And I didn't know the place we were going to after the funeral. I was thinking, is it going to be a noisy place where I'm not going to be able to hear people if they're talking to me? And it was... So that's a stress that I find always tips me over the edge. So Wednesday I went completely off plan. And I mean completely off plan. I don't mean just a little bit here and there. Wednesday, Thursday and Friday, totally and utterly off plan, and basically just eating for nerves. So this Tuesday coming, I'm expecting a gain. I don't know what sort of gain, because I'm going to try and pull it back between now and then, but whatever I do, even if I wasn't to eat another single thing between now and Tuesday, it's not going to be enough to repair the damage I've done over the last week. But it's just one of those things. I'll have to just write it off and start again. Today, we went to the funeral, and I haven't been to a funeral for quite a while, a year I think. Oh, when I tried to get my funeral suit on, it wouldn't fit. None of it would fit. Not the bottom, not the top. It was just so small. So that was that. So I thought, right, I know I've got another couple of pants that I can wear at my biggest, so they'll do, but I didn't have a jacket. All I had were really like dog walking anoraks, so that was out. So I thought, right, I'm going to have to go to the charity shop and find a jacket. I didn't want to go to the shop and buy all the new thing because I'm not intending to be this weight for much longer. So I'll go to the charity shop and get a jacket, okay, because our charity shop's pretty good. It's lovely actually. Everything that they have in there is all steam cleaned, and it's beautifully presented and ironed, and it's a lovely charity shop. So I went down there on, what day was it, Tuesday last week, to get it, and I went to, they had some lovely jackets, really lovely, all that would be perfect for a funeral. They were all too small, all of them. I felt really bad trying all these on. One after another I tried on, and none of them fitted, not one. So I did find a black cardigan, which wasn't ideal. It was a bit on the posher sides of cardigans, if you can have a posh cardigan, if you know what I mean. It wasn't like a hoodie or anything. It was quite a posh cardigan, and that was actually a bit too big for me. So that when it came around at the front bits went sort of hung down at a point because it was a bit too big. But it was the only thing I could find. So right, that'll do. It'll have to do. So brought it home. I was getting ready on the day of the funeral. I'd got some shoes recently. I'm only a size 2, and I got these shoes that were a size 3. And when I tried them on with thin socks, they seemed to be okay. But once I put nylons on, pop socks, put the shoes on. I couldn't walk in them, my feet were just falling out. Well, the only pair of shoes that I had that were black, and I thought, God, am I going to have to go in my trainers? So in the end, my hubby said, well, why don't you try a pair of my socks on? And they might be just enough to make it, you know, make them big, because all my socks are white. I usually wear white ankle socks, so they would be no good. So I tried a pair of his socks on, and yes, with his socks on and the shoes, he fitted. And I tried my pants on that I wear when I'm at my biggest, and they only just fit. I mean, only just fit. They were like a nylon thing, and I thought, if I really bend too much or I sit down too fast, these are just going to rip. So there it was, and because everybody else at the funeral, they're all quite slim. They're not a big family. They're a very slim family. And I know you're not getting dressed up to go out. You know, I understand that you're not going to a party. It's not that sort of thing. But I felt so bad. I had these shoes on that were too big. I had men's socks on coming up, you know. I had trousers on that were so tight. I felt so uncomfortable. And this cardigan that was sort of too big. I felt awful. I really did. But there was nothing I could do about it, so we went and got the day over with. But I felt really sorry for myself, I have to say. I didn't want to look glamorous or anything. I just wanted to be presentable, and I didn't even feel presentable. I just felt awful. But when we got back, my hubby says, and he says this every single time we go anywhere, he says, oh, you were the belle of the ball, he says. I don't know why he always says that. So, we did have last week, even on the Thursday night before the funeral, we had a takeaway. We've got a Thai noodle place in town, and we don't do takeaways. I said on my last video that we used to have a terrible takeaway habit many years ago, and after that we just don't do them. It's not part of anything that we do. Even when I'm at my worst, binging and dieting, anything, it just doesn't feature in our lives at all. I think the last time we got a takeaway was when that Thai place opened, and we got it because we'd never had Thai food and we didn't know what it was like, so we decided to try it, and that must have been 2 or 3 years ago, and it was probably years and years before that we had a takeaway. We just don't do them. So on the Thursday night, Andy said, why don't we get a takeaway, because we were so tired, we'd had visitors all day and everything was very stressful, so we got a takeaway. And this wasn't because I didn't have food in. I'd already cooked in the morning, because I've been trying to plan. I'd already cooked in the morning a lovely curry for tea, but when the takeaway was on offer, I must admit, I put the curry in the fridge and we ate the takeaway. And I dread to think how many sins was in that, because it was a lovely like a carton full of noodles and tofu and crispy vegetables, but you could taste, I think when you don't eat a lot of oil, because usually when I go off plan I eat lots of bread and that type of thing, sugary things. It was thick with oil, absolutely thick with it, and it was delicious, really. I thought I'd be quite horrified at the fact of all the oil, but no, it was nice, so we ate that. And when we went to the funeral, we'd asked them to do vegan food, and they'd done this lovely tartlet, it was called, which was like a side plate sized tart full of, I think it was tofu and tomato, and then it had been cooked where it's all caramelised, and it was gorgeous. So I had that. So as you can tell, I've not been on plan, and apart from that, I've just been eating whatever I wanted. I've not been bothering at all. So I am expecting a gain on Tuesday. So that's basically all that to do with those weeks. It's been quite a time, you know, very frustrating. And of course, the strange thing is now it hasn't come to an end yet, because there's still a lot to do, but soon we're going to have a lot more time on our hands. When you're looking after somebody like that, it takes up all your time and all your energy. Even when you're not there looking after them, every time the phone goes, you're wondering, have they had a fall? Who's this ringing now? And you stop and wait for someone else to speak, so that it's not going to be an emergency of some sort. We haven't been able to go out for a couple of years. We went out once this year for an afternoon when we knew another relative was visiting for the day, but we've never been able to go very far from home in case we were needed. And of course, it's on your mind all the time, what do they need? Having to do the shopping at specific times to fit in with when you're taking things up there when they need things, and it does take over your entire life, your emotional life as well as everything else. And when it all comes to a halt, which it hasn't done yet, but it's going to very shortly, it's going to feel very, very odd. We have been looking after them both for 7 years on and off, and it's going to feel very, very strange to not be doing that anymore. I don't know, it's going to be weird. Anyway, I'm going to get on to all the other things, otherwise this video is going to go on for hours. My co-host today, Sandy, isn't here today. She's snuggled up by the fire, but we have got a cushion. I don't know if you can see that. My dad brought it yesterday when they came down. It's a cushion with a dog on, and he said it looks like Sandy, so I'm not sure if it does, but anyway, she's sitting next to me. So I wanted to get on to, yes, this idea. I've noticed recently that I've been eating a lot of foods that aren't really agreeing with me. I've been trying to get some of the fake chickens and the like chicken tenders they call them, or chicken pieces, and I'm finding that I just can't eat them in a normal fashion. And even this Daiya cheese that is okay, it's a healthy A choice for vegans. The Daiya cheese, you can have 40 grams. But as soon as I go off plan, I get all these things in, and I say this has gone up to I'm in now, week 9, and I have all these things in, and for the first 8 weeks I've been able to eat these things in a reasonable fashion, whether it be some chocolates, the Daiya cheese. I've been having cheese on toast in a proper Slimming World way. Things like the chicken tenders and the corn ham, but I find that they're so addictive, all these things, and I think it's because they're not really real food. I had a look today to see what was in this Daiya cheese, and yes, there was water in it, and there were 3 different types of oil, but there was a great big list of things, all like anticoagulant or whatever, I don't know, anti-caking agents, and all things ending with "ine" and "een" and words that you've never heard of, and all of them, they're not. I was watching a video this morning, it was talking about all these new vegan fake meats, and they were saying about how they're just created in laboratories. They're not really real food, and I'm wondering if it's partly that I'm finding addictive. Perhaps my body's not recognising them as real food, because I can't stop. If I eat, I think, well, I'll just have a little portion of these chicken pieces in the meal, and then I have to finish the whole box. I don't know, I just can't stop eating them, and this cheese, as soon as I went off plan, I'm just piling it on toast, and I don't know. So I'm wondering if a lot of these foods that are just created in labs and they're not real foods are more addictive. So I'm going to have a little experiment over the next few days. I noticed my friend Jane Day, she's doing a 30-day challenge of sticking to plan. And I think I'm going to do a 30-day challenge of not eating any processed food to see, just as an experiment, to see if I feel differently, because I do find all these burgers, and they're not things that I used to eat. I'm wondering if they are more addictive. So that's going to be my 30-day challenge. I don't know if you ever watched Jane Day. She does a fantastic video. She's been doing it for years, and to me, hands down, she is the most inspirational Slimming World podcast, or whatever you call it, vlogger on YouTube. She certainly, I know it's different people inspire different people, but I find that she's had a lot of similar problems to me food-wise, and I find her very inspirational to watch. So if you haven't seen her channel, get over to watch it. Okay, so I've got some notes. Yes, hot chocolate. I tend to have 2 hot chocolates every day, and I'm also going to give those up over this 30-day challenge. I normally say that I cannot live without my chocolates, but I'm not sure whether the stevia is helping. I do wonder if having this, because I do have quite a sweet tooth, and I don't know whether having the stevia in the drinks is helping me. So I'm going to try and give up my hot chocolates for a month, which is going to be extremely difficult. I've done it before, I've not liked it, and I've always gone back to having them again, so I'm going to give that a go. Where are we? New groups, yes. I've been going to different groups because I haven't been able to fit into a particular time routine recently. I found the 5:30 group the most inspirational group of the lot. because people had massive weight losses there. They were losing 8, 9, 10 stone, and all the weight losses were huge. People were generally losing 4 or 5 pounds, so I loved it. But because it's late at night, my hubby didn't want me walking back at 7 o'clock. Now I insisted that I'd be fine, but there is a very lonely part. Once I get out of town, between there and our house, it's very, very lonely, very dark, and he wasn't keen on me walking back, so he came to meet me, and I found that quite frustrating. I don't want to be met. I want to go there and I want to come home on my own. So I was a bit frustrated about that, though I had to agree that he was right. It is very lonely and very dark. So, although I wasn't very happy about it, I was quite frustrated actually. I did have to agree with him, and I don't want him coming out to meet me. It's just not what I want. I like to be independent. I want to go when I go into class now, because I've been going so long. I can navigate the class on my own, and I like to do that. I like to go in the door, and I'll have to get to the other end of the room, but I'll do it on my own, and I'll get around to the scales on my own. I like to be, try and be independent. So last Tuesday was going to be a busy day all day. So I thought I'm going to have to go to group at 8 o'clock. That's the group I've always avoided, because I thought 8 o'clock in the morning it's going to be full of children. I thought it's going to be mothers who are going to go there and take their children onto school afterwards. And I can't be doing with a class that's got loads and loads of kids running riot. It just, I find it gets on my nerves. I'm not very good with children, and in a lot of classes they do just run riot, and I'm thinking to myself, why don't the parents sit them down and shut them up? So I've avoided that class. I had to go to that one on Tuesday, and it was lovely. It was fantastic. I'm not sure, I think there might have been a couple of children there, but I wouldn't have known. And they were so nice. And out of all the groups I've been to, it was the group that was more like a group than any other. There weren't any sort of people sitting in little groups. It was one definitely very, very close group, and I really liked it. It wasn't as inspirational as the half-5 class, in that there weren't massive losses. Most of the losses were around about £1, £2, 3 at the most. But the vibe that I got from going to that group was just lovely. And actually, as I was leaving, a lady came over to me and said, "Oh, are you going to make this your regular group?" And I said, "Well, I'm not quite sure really." And she said, "I wish you would." She said, "It's really nice, and I think you'd really like it here." And I thought how nice that was of someone to come over and say that. So it clinched it for me. So from now on, I'm going to go to that group, because I can go on my own, come home on my own, and they were lovely. They were so nice. Which I was really surprised. It wasn't what I was expecting. So I think if you're new to Slimming World and you've been to one group and you haven't quite got on with it, try all of them. I mean, all of ours are taken by the same consultant, all of them, and yet they're so different from each other. Each group has got its own feel, and I think even if it's the same consultant, try all the different ones until you find one that clicks for you. I'd love to have gone to the half-5 group, but it just wasn't to be. And I did love my Friday group, but Fridays isn't a good day for me to go to group, because I always feel Friday, oh well, I'll have a cheat day because it's Friday, it's the weekend, I can get back on track later on. Whereas if I go to a group on Tuesday, it's the middle of the week, it's not really, why should Tuesday be a cheat day? It's not the weekend. And by the time it gets to the weekend, I've only got a few days to go to group, so I can't splash out. So it suits me much better. Right, sorry, this is going to be one of my longest videos ever. Weight losses, I've told you about my weight losses. Yes, I wanted to recommend another channel, which is Leanne Collins. Is it Life Will Find a Way? Leanne Collins. And this is a brilliant video. All week she's been doing the vegan 7-day plan from the Slimming World website. She's changed it a bit to suit her own needs, but she tells you where she's changed it, and she's got a PDF document there of all the recipes that were in her 7-day mammoth session. She does all the cooking. She shows you how to cook all the meals, and she's making soups, she's making curries, she's doing breakfasts. It's just brilliant. She's put such a lot of work into it. So if you fancy getting some ideas for recipes or seeing what's on the 7-day vegan plan, watch Leanne Collins. It's absolutely brilliant. I mean, it's a good channel anyway. She always does good videos. But this particular week, this 7-day, there's been a video out every day with a dinner, a tea and a breakfast in. So Leanne Collins, have a look. And where are we now? Oh yes, if you listen to podcasts, I don't know, I mean, I love podcasts and I love the Slimming World podcast. I don't know if you've been listening to that. Jane Day, as I said, a friend of mine, she put me onto it this year because mine stopped in May. I was getting them and listening to them every week, and it just stopped in May and I didn't get any more. And she said, no, something went wrong with their podcast programme. She said, so unsubscribe from the podcast and then subscribe again and they'll all start coming in. So that's what I did and it worked. So if anybody else thinks, oh well, they've not put one out since May, unsubscribe, subscribe again, and they'll all be there. So now I'm really chuffed because I've got all the podcasts going back till May to listen to. And they did do one, the last one, about them trying out the vegan Slimming World. So have a look at that. And another podcast I came across this week was called Big Change. And it says about it's coming from a film. I think there's a film coming out called Big Change. So Big Change the film, I think the podcast is called. And so far there's about 150 episodes. Each episode is about a person that has lost significant amounts of weight, and it's their life story. I've listened to about 4 so far. I only found it about a week ago. And they're so inspiring. I mean, most of them have done it through eating a plant-based or at least vegetarian diet. But that doesn't really matter. It's not Slimming World. They've done it just by eating healthy. So basically it's about people who've reached a point in their lives, and so some of them have lost 200, 300 pounds. A lot of them have actually. I'd say the least anybody has lost is about 50 pounds. But it's all, each episode is a life story of someone who's lost significant amounts of weight and how it's affected their lives, and they've all done it through healthy eating. And it's so brilliant, just it makes you feel like you want to eat healthy. They don't talk about it, about the veggie side of it too much. It's more about the effect that it's had on their life, losing all this weight. And some of the people there, they'd reached a point where they were so big they couldn't walk or put the shoes on, and now they're running marathons and whatever. It's just brilliant. So that's called Big Change the Film, and it's a podcast, and I can't wait. I've got another 100 episodes to go now, so that's going to keep me busy for a little while. And it makes you feel, at the end of it, it makes you feel like you can do it, because I always think, I'm never going to do this, I'm never ever going to do it. And this is partly, again, why I'm thinking about giving up the processed food, because that's what all of them did. All of them stopped eating processed food, they stopped eating sugar and lots of junk food, and they went on to eat healthy food, and they said that it made such a difference. They didn't crave foods in the same way. So that's partly again why I've been inspired to try my unprocessed 30-day challenge. Okay, since this has been an extraordinarily long video for me, the camera cut me off in my prime. So we've added this little bit onto the end. I've only got one more thing to say. Next week we'll be back to the much shorter videos. Whilst we were up at my father-in-law's, clearing some things out of the house, I found a blanket that I crocheted for my mother-in-law around about 20 years ago, when I first started crocheting blankets. So I brought it down and I thought I'd show you. Yeah, this is it. It's bigger than I thought it was, bigger than I remembered. It's such a long time ago, I can't remember how I did it, but it looks like it's got all flowers crocheted. I think they're squares that I've crocheted flowers on and then sewn them all together. So I think this is, but it still smells of my mother-in-law. It really does. Yeah, so this is it. I'll bring it up to the bottom so you can have a look at the bottom. Yeah, so I knitted it crocheted it all out of scraps of yarn. I think, you know, when you've got lots of little bits left over and you don't know what to do with them. I made that blanket for her. After that one, I started making more, I suppose, more patterned blankets where I would have maybe all borders in blue and all flowers in yellow and then all the centres purple. But this one, because it was just made out of scraps, all the flowers are all various colours and whatever. So I just thought I'd show you that. I also got to bring down, I knitted for my father-in-law, a chef doll, and he's standing with a pinny on and a rolling pin, and he's standing next to a stall that's got all knitted baked goods on, so it's full of tiny little buns with cherries on and bread rolls with icing on. So, well, it needs a bit of repair because a lot of the, I've noticed a lot of the baked goods have fallen off. It must have been over the years because I knitted that a long time ago. So once I've got it together and found all the bits and glued them all back on again, I'll show you that next time. Anyway, it's about time I went. If you're still here, I'll catch up with you next week and we'll be back to a much shorter form video next week. From Tuesday onwards, I'm hoping I should be able to get them out every Tuesday because I'm going to be going to group it in the morning from now on. And that means that it should have time to get the video out sometime on Tuesday, and now we're not under as much pressure, and we can make plans, we can plan our days much better. I think from now on the video should be more consistent and it will be a lot shorter, I promise. So thanks for all your videos. I really love watching them. I watch so many, I say every morning, as I've told you before, I watch them whilst I'm having my breakfast to give me inspiration for the day. So let me know how you're getting on in the comments section. I always love to hear how everyone's doing. And thank you very much for watching. And I'll speak to you next, well, it won't be next week, it'll be only on Tuesday. So I'll speak to you on Tuesday. Bye.